Glossary. A coil and evaporator coil that is part of an air conditioner or heat pump that absorbs the heat from the air in the house. It is located inside an air handler or furnace duct. Air barriers designed to stop air movement through the building walls and roof. Air seals a seal to prevent passage of air or vapor. Ampacity. Ampacity is the maximum amount of electric current a conductor or device is meant to carry. ANSI standard. The American National Standards Institute. ANSI is a private nonprofit organization. It oversees the development of voluntary consensus standards for products, services, processes, systems, and personnel in the United States. ASHI, American Society of Home Inspectors, a not-for-profit professional association for home inspectors. The mission of ASHI is to set and promote standards for property inspections and provide educational programs needed to achieve excellence in the profession and meet the needs of members. AWG, American Wire Gauge. AWG is the standardized wire gauge system in North America. Backdrafting. Ongoing spillage occurs when the exhaust products don't leave the house through the chimney, but enter the house itself. Back siphonage. A reverse flow of soiled water into potable water piping. It doesn't need positive pressure on the downstream dirty side. Back siphonage occurs when the potable water piping system is at a lower than atmospheric pressure. A partial vacuum is needed for back siphonage. Backflow. A flow occurring in a reverse direction from that intended. It may be caused by either back pressure or back siphonage. Backflow preventer stops the boiler water from getting back into the drinking water. Backup heat. A secondary heat source when heat pump falls below its balance point. Baffles prevent insulation from covering the roof vents and allow air to flow up through the soffit vents into the roof space. Baffles also direct the air away from the insulation and help reduce washing. Balancing valves. Control valves that can be adjusted manually to balance the heating system. Balcony. An above-ground walkway or platform connected to the outside of a building. Balusters. Some people refer to spindles and railings as balusters. The entire railing system may be called a balustrade. Barometric damper, also known as a draft regulator. It is a metal device mounted on the exhaust flue to ensure an adequate supply of draft air for the chimney. Bats. Fiberglass and mineral wool commonly come in bats or blankets. Bats are typically 12 to 24 inches wide and fit between ceiling joists, rafters, and wall studs. Black water. Wastewater from toilets that may contain pathogens. Black water contains feces and urine. Blankets. Fiberglass and mineral wool commonly come in bats or blankets. Blankets can be up to 6 feet wide and are typically laid over ceiling joists. Bleed valves located near the top of every radiator to let trapped air out, so the water can circulate properly. Bonding. Bonding is simply the act of joining two electrical conductors together. They may be two wires, a wire and a pipe, or they may be two tin cans. Bonding ensures that these two things will be at the same electrical potential. That means you won't get electricity building up in one and not in the other. BTU rating, abbreviation for British Thermal Unit, amount of heat required to raise temperature of 1 pound of water 1 degrees Fahrenheit. Built-up asphalt, the most popular material used on low-slope roofs, composed of several layers of bitumen surfaces and finished with a layer of aggregate. Caissons, foundation systems created by drilling holes and filling them with concrete. Cant strips used at 90-degree intersections with built-up roofing and modified bitumen. They are triangular blocks of wood or fiberboard, typically, that allow the roofing membrane to make two 45-degree turns, rather than one 90-degree turn, as the membrane goes up a wall. 1063. Cantilevered. Many decks and balconies are cantilevered. These are usually a series of joists that have most of their length inside the house and up to 1/3 of their length exposed outside. They support a deck or a balcony with no vertical support below. Cold wall effect. This is a phenomenon that makes you feel cool in a room that's at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, perfectly comfortable, if you are sitting close to an uninsulated wall on a winter day. The cold wall effect is a result of heat radiating directly from your body to a cold surface. Heat flows from warm bodies to cold. Capillary tubes, a common expansion device in residential air conditioners. It is a very small diameter copper tube wrapped into a coil. It simply creates a bottleneck in the liquid line. As the refrigerant comes out of the end of the small diameter capillary tube, it expands into the larger tube. This lowers the pressure and, consequently, the temperature. Carport. Garages with fewer walls, sometimes none, just posts, and often no vehicle door. Check valves allow flow in one direction and prevent backflow when fluid in the line reverses direction. Chimney cap protects the top of the chimney from weather. They are usually concrete and may be precast or poured in place. Chinese drywall. Drywall imported from China. The drywall releases sulfur gases that cause problems for occupants and the home. Circulators on a hot water heating system. Circulators have the same function as the fan on a forced air heating system. They push the heat transfer medium to the areas of the home calling for heat. Cladding. The exterior surfaces form the skin of the house and are called cladding. Cladding components include wall surfaces, soffits, fascia, windows, doors, trim, flashings, and caulking. Closed system. A modern hot water heating system with an expansion tank just above the boiler, usually at ceiling level. It has eliminated the open discharge to atmosphere. and has added a pump. CO-ALAR stands for Copper Aluminum Revised. Devices marked with CO-ALAR mean that either copper or aluminum wire installation is appropriate. Code compliance. A home inspection is not a code compliance inspection, nor is it a bylaw inspection. Most existing homes will not meet all current codes, bylaws, and other building standards. Several codes apply to each house, typically a building code, electrical code, gas code, plumbing code, and so on. Combustion air necessary for burning fuel such as gas, oil, and wood. Deck exterior wood structures attached to buildings at an entrance point usually. Decks are commonly supported by posts in the house wall or foundation. Complete combustion reacts to oxygen with fuel to produce carbon dioxide and water. A large volume of air is required for complete combustion to take place. Component, a part of a system. Concentrated loads. When the upper wall is substantially replaced with a header and jack studs or a beam and 2 columns, the loads are concentrated. Conditions. Space, the areas of a building that are lived in. Conductors, any material used to conduct electricity. A current carrying wire. Conduit, a trough or a tube that is used to protect electric wiring. Convection. Convection ovens use a fan to circulate the air inside the oven. While food is cooking or baking, the fan works continuously to eliminate hot spots directly under the elements. This cooks food more quickly, evenly, and with less energy than a conventional oven. Convectors. Depending on what part of North America you're from, convectors can mean slightly different things. To many, convectors mean the next step in the evolution of heating systems after radiators. Convectors may be cast iron enclosed in a sheet metal cabinet with openings at the bottom and near the top. Cooling load. The cooling load is the amount of heat energy that would need to be removed from a space cooling to maintain the desired temperature. CPVC, chlorinated polyvinyl chloride. CPVC is a type of plastic. Crankcase heater exists on many air conditioning systems to keep the oil at the base of the compressor warm enough to boil off the refrigerant. Creosote, a dark brown or black flammable tar deposited from wood smoke on the walls of a chimney. Cross-connection is a possibility wherever the supply plumbing and solid or liquid waste could come together. A cross-connection is a serious issue. CUEL, a designation for aluminum-compatible equipment. Dedicated circuit. A dedicated circuit is a circuit that is dedicated to serving only one appliance. It ensures that the appliance has plenty of power to run the appliance safely and at peak performance. Deficiencies, state of being defective or lacking a necessary element. Delaminated sheathing. One of the implications of high moisture levels from either condensation or leakage is delamination of plywood sheathing. This is sometimes accompanied by buckling. Panel-type sheathing may lift off the rafters in a regular pattern. Delaminated sheathing is weakened and may not be able to carry its intended loads. Diaphragm tank has a loose rubber bladder separating the tank into 2 compartments. One is the air side and the other is the water side, which is connected to the boiler through a pipe. Differential settlement, when one part of the house settles and the rest does not, or 2 parts settle at different rates, cracking develops. This can be alarming and may or may not be a serious structural problem. Dip tube, the cold water supply pipe usually attaches to the hot water tank at the top. The dip tube carries the cold water down through the tank, discharging it near the bottom of the tank. The hot water is drawn off from the top of the tank. Downstream, when a switch is located after the fuses, it is considered downstream. Draft hood allows dilution air to be drawn into the vent connector to cool the exhaust and ensure it can move freely up the chimney. Draft regulator device used to regulate the draft on oil-fired furnaces, boilers, and water heaters. Drip caps are installed over windows and doors on houses with siding. Drip leg located at the appliance connection point to catch any water or foreign material that may be in the gas before the material gets into the appliance. Drip loop, a U-shaped bend in wires that allows water to drip off, so it won't go into the service entrance. Designed to prevent water getting into the conduit and to show that the service drop wires are not straining the splices. Drying potential. Some buildings are able to dry faster than others, where air can move freely through attics or between siding and sheathing. Moisture can be flushed into the outdoor air during periods of low relative humidity. Wall assemblies with wood shingles and shakes, conventional wood siding, and aluminum and vinyl siding have fairly good drying potential. This can have an effect on whether and how much damage is done to structures due to trapped moisture. Ductless air conditioning is becoming a popular option because it is not disruptive to install and can provide several cooling zones. Ductless systems are available as air or water-cooled units. DWV, drain, waste and vent. DWV. Most pipe materials are described as DWV, which means they are suitable for solids, liquids, and gases. Efflorescence, a salt deposit on a masonry or concrete surface that is associated with water moving through the masonry or concrete. Egress. Egress windows provide a safe exit from the home. In many areas, windows have to be available for use as emergency exits. In some jurisdictions, every bedroom has to have a window that can be used as an emergency exit. In other jurisdictions, only one exit window is needed on each floor with bedrooms. Basements also require a window for egress. IIF's exterior insulation and finish systems. Lightweight systems, sometimes called synthetic stucco, offer a wide variety of colors, ease of architectural detailing, good insulation levels, and a reduction of thermal bridging. These systems are also relatively low cost. Electronic ignition permits an intermittent pilot flame, instead of a continuous one. The ignition system comes on to light the burners only when it is called upon. Embedded joists. One way to provide end support for joists is to embed them in masonry or concrete foundation walls, end-bearing piles that can be driven down to a point where they bear on bedrock or other sound substrate. End-of-service life inspectors are required to report on any system or component that is near the end of its service life. To offer a professional opinion, inspectors must know the life expectancy, approximate age and apparent condition of the actual system or component. Engineered wood, also called composite wood, manufactured board, or man-made wood, includes a range of derivative wood products that are manufactured by binding or fixing together the strands, fibers, particles, veneers, or boards of wood. EPDM, ethylene propylene diene monomer, is by far the most common synthetic rubber roofing. Flow control valves often put into the system to prevent water flowing through a zone when the pump is off. Flue pipe, a vertical duct, pipe, or opening in a chimney for expelling exhaust gases from a fireplace, furnace, water heater, boiler, or generator to the outdoors. Expanded polystyrene, a common board insulation that is combustible, non-resistant to sunlight, and somewhat resistant to moisture. Extruded polystyrene, a common board insulation that is combustible, non-resistant to sunlight, and resistant to moisture. Failure, not performing an intended function. Fascia encloses the rafter ends at the roof. Fiber cement, otherwise known as asbestos cement, mineral cement, or cement asbestos. Portland cement forms the substrate, and the fibrous reinforcement adds strength to these products. Fire-stopping non-combustible insulation and/or metal thimbles should provide fire-stopping at each floor level. Fireproofing, a passive fire protection measure that renders a structure or materials fire-resistant or incombustible. Flame sensor typically uses a cadmium sulfide eye to sense combustion in the fireport. It is not visible without dismantling of the burner and cannot be checked during a home inspection. Flashing, thin pieces of impervious material installed to prevent water from passing into a structure. Flashing is used to decrease water penetration at objects such as chimneys, vent pipes, walls, windows, and door openings to make buildings more durable and to reduce indoor mold problems. Flat roof, any roof with a pitch of less than 2 in 12 is a flat roof, even though it is technically a very low-sloped roof. Floating slab that is supported by the ground and independent of perimeter foundations. Foamed in place insulation such as urea formaldehyde foam insulation can often be identified around electrical boxes because the foam typically oozes into the box. Evidence is also often visible at the sill plate and top plate. Friction piles that can be driven into soil far enough that the friction of the soil against the sides of the pile is enough to resist any downward movement. Frost depth, frost line, the depth to which frost penetrates into the soil. FRT plywood, fire retardant treated FRT plywood is used to replace more expensive parapet walls extending through the roofs at party walls where fire stopping is needed between dwellings. Fuse neutral, a common problem in old panels. The neutral white wire in the service box should not run through a fuse. The black wire should have a fuse and the red wire should have a fuse, but the neutral wire should not. FVER, flammable vapor ignition resistant. FVER, all water heaters now produced in North America are flammable vapor ignition resistant FVER type. GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupters. GFCI are circuit breakers installed at the panel to provide ground fault protection for the whole circuit. Grade beam, usually concrete beams that are supported on footings, piles, or piers and are located at grade. They transfer the loads from the building down to the footings or piles. Gray water, wastewater from baths, sinks, washing machines, and other kitchen appliances. Grounding. Grounding is the act of connecting something to the ground earth, so it has zero electrical potential. Everything that is grounded is connected to ground and can have no electrical energy stored in it. Guards or guardrails keep people from falling off landings, decks, balconies, and the open sides of staircases. Habitability. When a home is habitable, it is suitable for a person to live in without defects that endanger their health and safety. Hard coat stucco. Traditional stucco may be called hard coat, cement stucco, Portland cement stucco, or thick coat. Hardboard, usually manufactured to look like wood or stucco, is a type of fiberboard. Fiberboard is produced using high temperature and pressure to form wood or other plant fibers into panels. Hardboard is a very dense, compressed wood fiberboard. In hardboard, the wood fibers come from wood chips that have been mechanically or thermally broken down. Hardscape, new term for concrete, paver, asphalt, sidewalks, patios, driveways, retaining walls, etc. as a part of landscaping. Infrared ovens with an infrared option can reduce preheat times and reduce cooking times. Insulators oppose electrical current and provide protection from electrical current. Head burners, head that swirls the air in the blast tube to help mix the oil and air in an oil furnace. Heat exchanger transfers the heat from the flame and hot byproducts of combustion to the house air. Heaving cracks. Heaving refers to the upward movement of the building. Heaving cracks indicate movement of the slab relative to other parts. There are often elevation differences on either side of such cracks. The slab surfaces may be tilted on either side of the crack. Walls may not be plumb or floors may both be level. Hose bib. Most houses are provided with outdoor hose bibs, faucets to connect hoses for watering lawns, washing cars, etc. In some areas, these are called hydrants. The piping supply to the outside hose bib is usually metal where it passes through the wall, even if the house has plastic supply piping. Hot surface ignition system that lights the main burners directly without using a pilot light. House wrap. Typically spun bonded polyolefin or polypropylene fabrics. Good air barriers but not vapor barriers. In many parts of North America, house wraps have effectively replaced building papers on walls. Their long-term performance remains to be seen. Ice dams. A ridge of ice that forms at the edge of a roof and prevents the water from melted snow from running off the roof. The water can back up behind the dam and leak into the home, damaging insulation, walls, ceilings, and other areas. Incomplete combustion reacts oxygen with fuel to produce carbon monoxide. Water and carbon occurs when there is an insufficient supply of oxygen. Can be dangerous because carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas. Integral gutters. Gutters that are built into the lower edge of the roof. Liner. Flue liners may be clay tile, fire brick, metal, or asbestos cement. Some retrofit liners are made of poured concrete. Metal liners may be rigid or flexible. Internal drains. Internal drains are typically connected to pipes that go down through the house and discharge into a storm sewer. These are often laid into a roof similar to how a stack vent flashing is installed, except that the flange is at the top, and the sleeve extends down below the membrane inside the roof drain in the building. Island vent. Alternate way of venting. The trap installed on an under-counter island sink or other similar applications where a conventional vertical vent stack or air admittance valve is not feasible or allowed. Isocyanate. A type of foamed in-place insulation that is combustible, non-resistant to sunlight, and not resistant to moisture. Knee wall. A short wall, usually under 3 feet, that supports rafters in timber roof construction. Knob and tube. An old single-wire cable with rubber insulation. In knob and tube wiring, separate cables run to each electrical point, one black and one white. Landscape. The grounds around a house consist of landscape elements including shrubs, trees, lawns, and patios. Lateral thrust. Lateral thrust is also called horizontal force. It causes horizontal foundation cracks that are more serious than vertical or diagonal cracks. Ledger board. A ledger board is like a joist attached directly to the house wall. Joists are typically supported on the ledger board. Joist may sit on top of the ledger or be secured to it with joist hangers. Limit switch. A switch that controls the high temperature limit. It will shut off the burner if the temperature in the house gets too high. Limitations. When circumstances arise that prevent parts of the inspection from being performed, a limitation is created. There are many circumstances that can create limitations. A few examples are electrical power turned off, no access under decks and porches, and snow on the ground preventing an examination of the grating. These limitations must be noted in the inspection report. Line the side of the device where the wires from the panel are connected. Lintel. Usually an L-shaped piece of heavy iron or steel intended to support the masonry installed on it. A door, or a screen. It creates a division, influences the structural look, and can also provide support. Liquid line. A pipe or a hose connecting the condenser to the expansion valve. Load. Where the device that is to be protected by the GFCI device is connected. Loose fill. An insulator that can be blown or poured into roofs and walls. Materials such as cellulose fiber, glass finer, mineral wool, vermiculite, and perlite are all commonly used. Low slope roof. Low slope roofs use a waterproof membrane or skin to protect the building. In common usage, they are usually called flat roofs. Masonry adhered. Veneer adhered. Masonry can be a natural or a manufactured material. A natural material can be stone, and manufactured materials can be brick or colored concrete made to look like stone. Masonry veneer. Masonry veneer walls typically have weep holes and flashings near the bottom of the wall. Look to see if these have been buried. Buried weep holes can lead to considerable damage to the brick veneer and the structure. Mast. The vertical section of conduit that houses the wiring between the service drop and the service entrance. Metering device. This device is located just upstream of the evaporator coil that changes the refrigerant from a high-pressure, high-temperature liquid to a low-pressure, low-temperature liquid. Mineral wool. A common insulator that comes in bat or blankets. It is non-combustible and resistant to sunlight and moisture. Moisture barrier. Used to restrict the movement of moisture. It restricts both moisture diffusion and air leakage. Monoport burner. Commonly used on conversion burners where an oil heating system has been converted into a gas system. Common in high-efficiency furnaces and popular because they work equally well in any orientation. Monolithic slab foundation systems constructed as one single concrete pour consisting of a concrete slab having thickened portions of the slab under load-bearing walls and around the edges of the perimeter. Multi-zone split systems can be multi-zone, with one condenser unit serving up to 4 evaporators in different parts of the home. Pilaster. A thickening of a foundation wall. may be thickened to receive the concentrated load of a beam resting on top of the pilaster, or it may be acting as a stiffener to prevent the foundation wall from bowing inward. Multi-part burner found in most conventional gas furnaces, made of steel or cast iron. Non-habitable. When a home is non-habitable, it is not suitable for people to live in without defects that endanger their health and safety. Non-potable water that is not clean is considered non-potable, which means it cannot be safely used for drinking, cooking, and washing. Ohm, the psi-derived unit of electrical resistance. Open splice is a connection between two or more electrical wires is called a splice and should connected. Inside electrical boxes. When the connections are not contained inside a box, it is called an open splice. Open system, typically a loop using pipes and radiators. It has an expansion tank located at the top of the home. Above the highest radiator, an overflow pipe leading out from the expansion tank is open to the atmosphere. OSB-oriented strand board. OSB is a type of engineered lumber made by adding adhesives and compressed layers of wood strands in specific orientations. Overfused, a fuse or circuit breaker that is oversized for the capacity of the circuit conductors. Party wall, a wall shared by two adjoining buildings or rooms. PV polybutylene. PB is a material used for supply piping. PE polyethylene. PE is a material used for supply piping. PEX cross-linked polyethylene. PEX is a material used for supply piping. Photocell, a type of primary controller that serves as an automatic safety device to shut off the burner if the flame is out. Piers, columns that may be completely concealed in the soil or may project above. Piers usually have footings and either be thought of as posts or columns. Pigtailing, a safe way to make sure multiple wires stay connected to a screw terminal. Can also be used to extend a wire that is too short in an electrical box. Piles used instead of footings, typically where the soil quality is poor. They are generally more expensive to install and have to be driven into the ground with specialized equipment. Puff polyurethane foam. Puff roofing is a synthetic single-ply roofing material that is popular in some parts of the country. Sprayed in place, POOF is a two-part foam mixture sprayed onto roof structures to form a single-ply roofing membrane. Pilot light, a small gas burner that is kept burning continuously in order to light a larger burner when needed. Pitch, the slope of the roof, expressed as a ratio of the rise over the run. Pitch pan, a metal box filled with flexible roofing material. In the old days, pitch was used. Today, cold asphalt mastic is used. These pitch pans are generally not satisfactory and require lots of maintenance to keep them watertight. Pitch pocket, a metal box filled with flexible roofing material. In the old days, pitch was used. Today, cold asphalt mastic is used. These pitch pockets are generally not satisfactory and require lots of maintenance to keep them watertight. Polyisocyanate, a type of foamed-in-place insulation that is combustible, non-resistant to sunlight, and not resistant to moisture. Polyisocyanurate, a common board insulation that is combustible, non-resistant to sunlight, and not resistant to moisture. Porch, a covered area adjoining an entrance to a building, and usually having a separate roof. Portico, small roof assemblies over entrances supported by columns. Potable, clean water is considered potable, which means it can be safely used for drinking, cooking, and washing. Pressure reducer, modern closed systems typically have an automatic water makeup system using a pressure-reducing valve. It automatically adds water to the system as it is needed. Pressure relief valve, a type of safety valve used to control or limit the pressure in a system. Primary controller, an automatic safety device to shut off the burner if the flame is out. PVC, polyvinyl chloride. PVC is a material used for water supply piping. It is a plastic-based material rather than synthetic rubber. PVC is an expensive roofing material and not widely used on single-family homes. R value, the capacity of a specific insulating material to resist the flow of heat. The higher the R value, the greater its insulating power. R22, popular brand name refrigerant. Because of environmental concerns, it is no longer being sold in new equipment but is still available and may continue to be replaced in air conditioning systems for years to come. R410, a popular brand name refrigerant. Radiant heat. Some hot water heating systems don't have any radiators, convectors, or baseboards. Instead, pipes are buried in the ceilings, walls, and floors. Readily accessible, available for visual inspection without requiring moving of personal property. Dismantling, destructive measures, or actions that will likely involve risk to persons or property. Refractory fire pot, the chamber in which oil is burned. The chamber surrounds the flame and radiates heat back to the flame to help with combustion. Relative humidity, RH, the amount of moisture in the air relative to the amount of moisture the air could hold if saturated. Relief valve, a safety device to prevent water pressure building up in the boiler system. Representative number 1 component per room for multiple similar interior components such as windows and electric receptacles. 1 component on each side of the building for multiple similar exterior components. Resistance, opposition to the flow of current in an electrical circuit. Resistance is measured in ohms. Rubberized asphalt, modified bitumen, or modbit, as it often is called. Membranes are an alternative to built-up roofs. Rolls of this rubberized asphalt membrane are typically torched onto the roof. bonded mopped into the roof with hot asphalt, or adhered with a self-adhesive peel and stick backing. Sash of frame holding window glass. May be made of wood, vinyl, metal, or fiberglass. Scope of work. The contract may contain or refer to a scope of work such as a standards of practice of an association. Because very few homebuyers have given much thought to the scope of work of home inspectors, it is reasonable that they would expect that home inspectors would identify any existing or potential defects in the home. Only home inspectors know that there is a defined scope of work and several limitations. Agreeing on a scope of work before the inspection is one of the best ways to adjust expectations and control your liability. Scuppers are simply openings through parapet walls or perimeter curbs that allow water to drain into a downspout running down the exterior of the building. Scuppers are essentially a continuation of the roof membrane. Secondary heat exchanger made of stainless steel, removes more heat and condenses water from gas. Service drop. The collection of overhead wires coming from the utility pole to the point of connection to the house. Settlement crack occurs when one part of the house settles and the rest does not, or two parts settle at different rates, and settlement cracking develops. It can be alarming, and may or may not be a serious structural problem. Short cycling. When a furnace comes on and off every minute or two, it usually indicates a malfunction. Shrinkage crack caused by the natural curing of concrete. There are usually no structural implications to shrinkage cracks. Shut down. A state in which a system or component cannot be operated by normal operating controls. Sill. A shelf at the foot of a window or a doorway, usually made of stone, wood, or metal. Single-ply flexible sheets of compounded synthetic materials manufactured in a factory to strict quality control requirements. Skirting around porches and decks is usually wood. It should allow for ventilation of the area below the porch. Its function is to keep animals, children, and wind-blown debris from under the porch or deck. It can also be a cosmetic treatment. It often has a door or a removable section for access. Slab coil transfers heat from the house air to the refrigerant in the coil. The slab coil is installed on a small angle with a single condensate tray below the lower end of the coil. Slugging. The introduction of liquid to the intake side of the compressor. Smoke shelf. The area behind the damper that is nearly level. It is the bottom of the chimney. Soffit encloses the rafter ends at the roof overhang and may be made of several materials. Softcoat stucco. A type of synthetic stucco. Synthetic stucco is a lightweight system that offers a wide variety of colors, ease of architectural detailing, good insulation levels, and a reduction of thermal bridging. It is also relatively low in cost, sparing the result of water entering brick, concrete, or natural stone. It forces the surface to peel, flake off, or pop out. Spark arrestor. Some chimneys have a screen at the top to prevent sparks or embers escaping, and to keep animals and birds out of the chimney. The screen should have openings between 34-inch and LH-inch. Spillage occurs when the exhaust products don't leave the house through the chimney, but enter the house itself. Staggered bus. You can usually identify which bus the breakers are attached to. Many modern breakers are finger-jointed so that adjacent breaker positions are on opposite bus bars. You have to be careful though, because while this applies to most panels, it does not apply to all. Steep slope roof. Steep roofs shed water, relying on gravity and capillary action. They are not watertight. Steep roofs act more like a series of umbrellas than a weather-tight skin. Suction line, also called the return line. It connects the evaporator outlet to compressor inlet. Supported slab. A floor slab supported by the ground that is integrated into the foundation system for the building. Synthetic roofs designed to mimic the look of traditional roofing such as wood and slate, with less weight and reduced insulation costs. Many of these materials are made from polymer resins, in addition to recycled materials such as rubber tires and other plastics. Synthetic stucco. A lightweight system that offers a wide variety of colors, ease of architectural detailing, good insulation levels, and a reduction of thermal bridging. It, also relatively low in cost. System. A combination of interacting or interdependent components, assembled to carry out one or more functions. Technically exhaustive. An investigation that involves dismantling, the extensive use of advanced techniques, measurements, instruments, testing, calculations, or other means. Temperature drop. The amount the air temperature drops as it passes over the evaporator coil. Termination bar. With PVC and EPDM, metal counterflashings are sometimes replaced with metal bars called termination bars. These bars hold the top part of the flashing against the wall. The joint at the top of the flashing is sealed with caulking. Unconditioned space. The areas that are within the building shell that are not temperature-controlled conditioned space. Uniform settlement. The house settles slightly as a whole, and because everything moves together, there is no internal stress and no cracking. If settlement is uniform, there are usually no structural problems. Thermocouple and automatic safety control. It sits in the pilot flame and senses whether the pilot is on or not. Threshold. A strip of stone, wood, or metal that forms the bottom of a doorway. It is crossed over when entering a home or a room. Throat. The top of the firebox below and at the damper. Tie bar. A mechanical tie bar is used to join two breaker handles. TPO. Thermoplastic olefins is a single-ply membrane that is a plastic-based material rather than a synthetic rubber. TPR valve. Temperature pressure relief valves. TPR valves do two jobs. They will open and dump water out of the tank if the temperature exceeds 210 degrees. They will also open if the pressure in the tank exceeds 150 psi. Traditional stucco. You can think of stucco as a thin concrete skin applied to a building. Stucco is basically cement, aggregate, and water. There may be additives used to help hold the mix together, make it more plastic, or speed up or slow down the setting time. Transite, a brand name for an asbestos cement pipe that was used for vent connectors in some areas. Traps designed to prevent sewer odors from entering the home through the plumbing fixtures. The seal in the trap is provided by the wastewater. Truss uplift when the top floor ceilings lift off interior walls. This happens in the winter, and they drop back down in the summer. Vacuum breaker, an anti-siphon device that opens on low pressure and discharges wastewater rather than allowing it to flow backward through the breaker. Vapor barriers used to restrict the movement of water vapor. It restricts both vapor diffusion and air leakage. Vapor retarder, designed to restrict the movement of water vapor. It restricts both vapor diffusion and air leakage. Vent connector, a metal pipe attached to the furnace to carry the exhaust products up the chimney and outdoors. Vermiculite, a common loose fill insulator that is non-combustible, sunlight resistant, and absorbs moisture if untreated. Vertical shear, when one part of the building drops relative to another. The crack width may be less than 1/16 of an inch. However, there can be significant dislocation. One side of the house could drop 1 inch relative to another, and the crack still won't be very wide but may cause a serious structural problem. Voltage drop. Loose connections also lead to excessive voltage drop. It's natural to have some loss or drop of voltage by the time you get to the end of a long circuit. Most codes allow this to be as much as 3% through a feeder or branch circuit, or 5% total through both. Loose connections lead to too much voltage drop, which might be noticed by dim lights, slow motors, etc. Voltage, the pressure from an electrical circuit's power source that pushes current through a conducting loop. Waferboard, structural material made from rectangular wood flakes that are bonded together with waterproof phenolic resin under intense heat and pressure. The wood flakes have a controlled thickness and length. Water blender mixes some cold water with the hot water coming off the boiler to achieve a desired temperature. Water hammer, a loud banging sound in the pipes. It occurs when valves are closed quickly, and the water, which is moving with considerable velocity and momentum, has to stop very quickly. The water bounces off the valve and actually creates a vacuum as it bounces away from the valve. Waterlogged. When the required air in the tank has been displaced by water, it is said to be waterlogged. Wet vent, a vent that also acts as a drain for another fixture.